So how do you want to live when this pandemic's over? A lot of people have put a lot of time into thinking about what's going to be different about work and their job when this is over. They've worked from home, and how is it going to look when they can go back to an office and back to their normal activities at work? Church leaders have spent a lot of time trying to decide, how are we going to do church when this is over? How do we do communion, and how do we interact, and how do you have fellowship, and how's that going to be? But a lot of you have thought about what you want your life and your family's life to look like when this pandemic's over. I found myself thinking about that because of sweet Patsy Rogers. Patsy died a couple of days ago. About 2 days before her death, her family called me and said, "Steve, would you come pray over Patsy? There's several of us here, but you can wear a mask. We won't shake your hand if you'll just pass through and go back in Patsy's room and pray over her." And so I agreed to do that, and I drove to her house, and I put my mask on, and I went in and nodded to everyone and said, "Hello, how are you?" And they said, "Hi, Steve." And I made my way back to Patsy's room where she was dying. I decided to take off my mask, so I unhooked half of it, and I wanted her to be sure she was conscious at all to hear me, and I was going to pray for Patsy's journey home. Her family had told me how she had been talking about wanting to go see Jesus, and we even visited a little bit on my way through the living room about how important that was, that Patsy was about to go where she'd always wanted to go, and that as much as we would miss her, we wanted to release her to where she wanted to be. Now, about the time I got ready to pray, here came all the family and friends into the room anyhow, and they really didn't do it consciously, but all of a sudden everyone was holding hands and squeezing together, and I was thinking I need to put my mask on, and I tried to flip it up, and of course that didn't work at all. And I finally decided it was a holy moment, trust God and just pray, and we did. And we talked more about why Patsy wanted to go see Jesus. It reminded me of some things that the Apostle Paul said in Philippians chapter 1. He talks about death and life. And here's what he says: that I would pray and have sufficient courage so that now as always Christ will be exalted in my body, whether by life or by death. For to me to live is Christ and to die is gain. If I am to go on living in this body, that will mean fruitful labor for me. Yet what shall I choose? I do not know. I'm torn between the two. I desire to depart and be with Christ, which is better by far. But it is more necessary for you that I remain in the body. Convinced of this, I know that I will remain and I will continue with all of you for your progress and joy in the faith. You may think this is going to be a short devo about, in case you die, you ought to look forward to being with Jesus. But I'm not sure that's Paul's main point. I think Paul's saying, by the way, I'd like to go be with Jesus, but here's my point. I need to stay here for your progress and joy in the faith. So here's what I encourage you to think about after this is over. How are you going to live your life? Are there things in your life and your family's life you want to change to be sure that you are a part of people's joy and progress in the faith? So let's be intentional about continuing to take care of our family. Let's look out for the people, not just when this pandemic's over, but the people that are not in voluntary self-isolation, but in self-isolation because they're lonely and don't have a connection. Let's look for those people. Let's continue to serve our neighbors, but let's do it in the name of Jesus. And let's be intentional about having Jesus conversations. Ask your neighbors and friends that apparently are not believers. Ask them what they think about Jesus, and do they have thoughts about God during this? And maybe that'll give you a chance to share your story of faith, to do your testimony, your witness. Maybe it will help you lead people to Jesus. Maybe you'll be more intentional about strengthening people who are struggling in their faith. There are so many ways that God's going to act when this is over. I think He is acting now. So I'd encourage you to be intentional about, yes, it will be fine to be with Jesus forever, but he's got things for us to do here. And what does that look like in your life?